We are live and
Well,
sent.
welcome back, everybody. We are live. We've got a really, really lovely show today with a very good friend of mine, Brant Danger. How are you, sir?
I'm splendid. Thank you, Donald. Nice to be here.
Splendid. Splendid Danger. That's the name of our new band right there.
All right. All right.
Cool, cool beans. Yes. And let me say hello to my dear friend, Patriarch. How are you, sir?
Very well, thanks. It is absolutely boiling here. In
Oh, where you
A
are.
lot of my friends back in the UK are complaining about the weather and the grey
Mm,
skies, but sometimes that would be a nice change for me. It's
I get it. Yeah.
wet.
I, it's been a funky summer where I am, a little bit of a heat wave going on right now as well. But I have the joy of air conditioning. How you like them apples? So we have an interesting show today. Paul did a Patriot did a fundraiser recently, and Brent Danger contributed the most. So we are awarding him some artwork on the theme of God, family, and nation. So the theme essentially is really, really important to our whole movement. These are the pillars of nationalism. These are the pillars of Western civilization. No nation or country can really survive without these three pillars, I would say. So I thought that those would be this would be a great theme for the show today. I'm going to put on Paul's screen, so Brent will still be here with us with the audio, but we won't see his cool icon there. So let me just move things around a little bit. So Brent, tell the audience more about yourself. What is School of the West?
Okay. It is a website which has both traditional information that kids might come across in public schooling,
Hmm.
plus it has information, more importantly, which is outside the scope of public schooling, which prepares kids at different ages and different stages of their development to recognize and combat anti-white propaganda that they will encounter throughout their lives.
Mm.
It's accomplished in different ways. There's different lessons and videos
Mm.
specifically made for kids at
Yeah,
different ages of their development. And
nice.
right now, what I'm doing is working on a series of activity books for young kids that give them a sense of European identity. Because
Mm.
I think one of the key elements for white well-being for young kids is not
Yep.
necessarily delve into the negative aspects of everything that they're going to encounter in their lives, but to
Mm.
let them know who they are, what people they belong to,
Yeah,
where our people live around the planet right now,
nice.
and form that identity that a people need so that they
Yeah.
can decide to take action at some point in the future for themselves to once
Mm.
again reconstitute and recapture the
Yeah.
civilization that our ancestors have made. So there's information for younger kids, and I'm working on that literature right now. Uh,
Mm.
After I do that, as far as the literature goes, I'll make a few storybooks. Those will be
Okay.
hardback. And
Okay.
also in August, I'll be putting some white well-being lessons on the website in the Elite Teen series. And then these lessons will be the pure distilled information from Jason Kuna
Okay.
in his this teachings that he calls Go Free, and I just
Hmm.
refer to it all as an umbrella term of white well-being. So I'll
Yeah.
be getting down into the specific terminology, how to recognize it, how to use it, how
Nice.
to employ the vocabulary and argumentation if you find yourself
Mm.
locked
Mm.
into some type of a battle with anti-whites,
Right.
either
Right.
face to face or online. How do you conduct yourself?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the stuff that I put on the website so far for teens is pre white well-being work. It's just giving
Okay.
them a background in different aspects of psychology,
Mm.
teaching or touching on government a little bit,
Yeah.
the idea of egalitarianism, I kind of went over World War II very
Mm.
lightly because it's a touchy subject with people,
Yeah.
but also I feel that it's also very important at the same time because that's like the a genesis or the mother lode
Yeah.
of kicking off egalitarianism and white
Mhm.
guilt. So
Big
I
time.
try to take all of these topics and I meld them together. So anyway, that's
Wow.
what I'm working on right now on the website.
That's incredible. That's so amazing. Now, I think not long ago we spoke a bit about White Student T and his
Hmm.
book Equal Training. Now, on my channel here on Donald Kent Art, there is I'm thinking set list because I'm in a band. No, but it's a playlist. Sorry, and it's a playlist of my interviews with him where we go chapter by chapter, and I read through it almost. I think actually the whole book, and then he comments on every part of this strategy to stop critical race theory in schools. That is what the book is about. Equal Training. You can find the book on Amazon. But I urge people to go over sometime and look at that playlist of interviews. Now, you guys are working together on something. What's this group?
Yeah, we haven't. We've just sent emails back and forth on how to approach doing it
Okay.
because he was, I came up with that where I asked him about working on that first, and then he sent back, initial questions about, okay, how do we go about doing this?
Hmm.
And then I replied back with, we don't have to do it like we're in a school setting. We don't have to come up with lesson plans,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't necessarily do it as though we are aiming this for college students because the
Mm.
bulk of the kids that are going to be looking at the School of the West website and their
Yeah.
parents, they're going to
Yeah.
be a bit younger, and his information can be distilled and
Mm.
put into a slightly simpler form and a more condensed form so it can be put into lessons that then goes on the website. But the essence of what we'll do will still be exactly the same thing that he presented in his books because it's fantastic information that he has in his books, or in his book I
Extraordinary.
should say. Yeah,
Yeah.
so as far as a lesson goes or a series of lessons, things need to
Mm.
be, as you know, a former teacher, they need to be more
Yeah.
specific, and you need to say, here's the objective for
Hmm.
this one, here's what you're going to
Yeah.
learn. Now we're done
Right.
with that. Boom, next subject. Now boom, now
Yep.
we're done.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we'll work on this back and forth as we both have free time, and
Yeah.
then when that's done, we'll have an excellent little series of lessons that will go on the website.
That is so freaking cool. I'm so excited for you guys. You two together are going to be explosive. I mean, in terms of like you're just everything. You've got the mind, you've got the personality, you've got the dialectic. You know how to talk about things. The lesson planning. I mean, everything. It's just such a wonderful chemistry that you both have. So I'm really, really excited about what's going on there. I don't know my future, but I would like to in some way be a part of this, at least at the very least to promote it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Um, but it's always, life is the old like, working a full-time job versus wanting to produce,
Right.
content for the movement, and it's a constant battle. It would be so nice to be able to do this full time. You know what I'm saying? That's really my
Oh
dream.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh Lord, yeah, I know. If we just had, like I don't know, like what our enemies have, like lots and lots of money and people that support Marxism and all these kinds of, things that
Hmm.
they're doing. If there's any millionaires out there right now, please step up to the plate. We've got a lot of talent here, and let's get moving on saving our people. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
let me pass the mic over to Paul. Paul? What are your thoughts on this topic so far?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to be educating our children, right?
Hmm.
One of the key instruments in winning the minds and shaping the future of our people is one of the ways that it's one of the things that got us in this position in the first place, right? Giving our
Right.
children up over to the education system to just let them absorb
Yeah.
whatever doctrines, whatever. education and knowledge,
Hmm. Right.
theory, perceptions that our enemies really enemies to
Yeah.
embody and regurgitate, and now we say that most of the nation, our people, self-loathing attitude and white guilt, which I know
Hmm.
parents kind of uh, community tend to focus. And yeah, I mean, right, these we are. I think it's time to end that a bit and uh, kind of pride and knowledge about our past and really,
Sure, sure. You know, the whole topic brings up the notion of how the Frankfurt School planned all of this, and how over decades they patiently infiltrated the academic world in our countries, and how they created like sort of false sciences, and things like feminism and critical race theory and all of these type of things. And it's a lesson to us about how people can infiltrate and take down our culture from within. I would almost say that a whole lesson plan on on the Frankfurt School would really be maybe a centerpiece to the School of the West, and equal training by white student T, is to say, this happened. This is where these things come from. It's like, for example, Candace Owens right now is in trouble for asking the question, what were the books that the Nazis were burning? What I mean, it's just a question. It's just a
Hmm.
question. And whoa, boy, you just stepped on a landmine right there. That's you're not allowed to think or speak freely. So, back in the box, that kind of thing. Anyway, it I don't know. It's just patriarchs bringing that up really really kind of popped that in my mind. Do you think that is something you would add to your curriculum in some way, Brent?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that the whole gamut, the absolute spectrum of
Mm,
all of these avenues of attack on our people should
yeah.
be exposed in one
Yes.
form or another, at least discussed. I mean, all the way
Yes.
down to like the kosher symbols on food. Why is
Yeah.
our food kosher in the United States? I mean,
Right.
there is
Right.
an almost unlimited amount of material that we can look at. And I think that the Frankfurt School is another one of these foundational uh, keystones of the this anti-white ideology.
Yes. Yes.
It's like where the parasites came over and then they dug in deep. They got a
Big
foothold.
time.
They got
Big
a
time.
foothold, and then they spread from there. And I'm
Hmm.
not being sarcastic when I say this next statement. There's a lot to admire about the Jewish perseverance
Yeah.
and their belief in their own people and the confidence that they have in themselves, whether it's earned or not, doesn't matter. They have the confidence in themselves, their
Mm,
people, their ancestors, to where they feel it's their right and it's in their interest to promote ideologies and to undermine other people's culture, so it's better for
mm,
them.
mm.
It
Mhm.
benefits
Mhm.
their well-being. And
Right.
I rightfully so, I detest what they've done to our countries,
Sure.
but I can respect the way that they've gone about it. And there's a big lesson for us to learn in that. And part of talking about the Frankfurt School would be, you know, bringing those lessons to our people.
I get it. Yeah. It's actually not an uncommon subject in our sphere. This is something that many people in our sphere have kind of pointed out, like how genius, although it's insipid, it's evil, but how genius it was the way that the Frankfurt School, thought, okay, how can we take down a country without shooting a bullet?
Hmm.
Well, what are the foundations of a country? You know, family, God, family, and nation. So, okay, how do we destroy the family? All right, well, let's start with the woman. we're going to, if you can turn the woman against the man, then that's feminism, right? Okay. And then let's push, this, the whole kind of abortion agenda. That's going to be, I mean, it's crazy how abortion during like the voting cycles is the number one issue that they galvanize women against, the conservatives. And I actually was speaking this to a woman that I know in my profession, who is like, now that I'm older, I'm going to be voting conservative, but I always used to vote, Democrat, specifically on the topic of abortion. And I'm like, I mean, so we could go down that rabbit hole. I don't know that we want to do that on this show, but it struck me like you it's a really contentious topic, but it was brilliant in terms of like that's a great way to destroy a country. You see what I'm saying? In terms of like slowing down or just, yes, affecting the what do you call it, the population numbers. It's a
Hmm.
type of eugenics. It's a backwards eugenics in the sense of like, now how can we depopulate these people? Well, we're going to promote degenerate lifestyles, girls. You've got like the Hawk girl that's real popular right now at, and 7/15 2024, and how that's really just the idea of like, let's take a traditional white girl and let's reward her for being degenerate, and in a huge way, and
Yeah.
like as if this is normal, as if this is normal behavior. These things are not accidents. I mean, there's probably billions of girls out there doing all kinds of, degenerate stuff on the internet, but somehow, okay, well, let's pull this one out and we're going to turn this into, she's going to be a superstar. And I'm not making a judgment specifically on her. I'm talking about the system and how it works. And so, like, I've always thought that it's key for young people to have, I guess I would call it internet literacy. Does that make sense? What do you call that?
I think that's a term that works as good as anything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you think that is part of your, or could be part of your program, or what are your thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, yeah, that can definitely be part of it. That's pretty much in line with some of the things that I've already put on the site, even though I didn't
Mm,
specifically talk about the internet, because I think in order to talk about internet literacy, you've got to discuss what some traditional values are first, because
mm,
from the way that I look at it, the internet is such a foreign, weird
mm.
communication system, because
Yes.
I grew up, playing in the dirt with my plastic M16 rifle, and sticks and things like that. I mean, that's what a kid is, not sitting on your
Yes.
ass like a little fat turd eating
Yeah,
Twinkies,
yeah, yeah.
looking at a screen.
Oh my God.
That's just ridiculous. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, that could be a part of it, but I think before I would do that, people have to understand who the hell they are first. They got to
Well done.
understand that they're part of a people. They come from a
Yes.
long chain of people that didn't have all
Yes.
this internet, horse shit.
Yes.
And they need
Yes.
to understand psychology. They need to understand, why do they crave this attention? What is going on chemically inside of their head, which gives them these little dopamine hits when they're playing a video game, or someone gives them likes, or
Mm,
a friend tweets to them, or whatever. Why can't they
mm,
put their little phones down when they're inside of a
mhm.
class, or going
Oh
out in
boy.
public? Why do they always have it in front
Yeah.
of their face? So they
Jerky.
need to understand what's going on inside of them first. They need to understand some basics. I think then you can talk about internet literacy. What it is exactly. When you see something on the internet, is it real or is it fake? Why is someone giving you attention? Why is someone on the internet famous? Like you're just talking about this girl here. Why do some
Mhm,
things
mhm,
get promoted and some things don't? Now, some of these subjects, teenagers are not going to understand that because their brains haven't developed yet. It may take until their 30s before they're at a cognitive point where they can see all of these wheels in motion that are in the background, which
mhm,
make these decisions, which either censors people or promotes people on the internet. But
mhm.
even though something might be complex and they can't understand it all, they can at least start getting some of the foundational ideas about
Yes.
it early on. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think how to take care of your finances.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
what are credit cards, etc. Okay,
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
All, these things that a person needs in the complex society that we live in now, as they're
Sure.
becoming adults, anything along those lines, I think is valid
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
very helpful. And if I have the time and or others have the time, that will go on the website as well.
Yeah. It just occurred to me that I hate to say this, but I feel like there needs to be classes on parenting. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
one of the
The-
one of the greatest tragedies in our society is the, how do I say, the breaking of the lineage between generations. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
like what what the great grandfather knows passing down. Like so much has changed in the last 50 years alone, let alone 100 years, that there's been a breakage in that lineage. So we're not learning how to live off the land. We're not learning how to even manage our money and simple things like this. And parents today, including myself, are overwhelmed with the impact that the internet has on our children, and therefore we're just at a loss. We're you look at boomers and boomer tech and all that funny stuff, but like they really don't know what's going on. Whereas my son, for example, he speaks another language practically. I listen to him talking to his cousin,
Hmm.
and they're just off and running. And I'm trying to keep up so that I can be connected to that world. I try, I make an effort to do that, but I have to say, I really don't think that most parents really do. They don't kind of have time to be on the internet or to kind of know what's going on and
Right.
how all it's a type of a, I don't know, a culture creating machine in a sense. And like, just for example, like if my son might like mumble or speak some in a certain way, and I'd be like, speak up.
Hmm.
A simple thing like that. It's like it's actually huge because there's a lot of people in his generation that I don't know, they just lack certain kinds of communication skills. There's a type of fear, a social fear, a social anxiety about dealing with people directly. I've discovered that like if I have to discuss sort of like to scold him or something like that, it's easier for him to handle that through a text than face to face. And that,
Yes.
I mean, but so this is
Yeah.
what I'm saying as an adult, as a parent, I've actually found an effective way to use that. I kind of, what is it good or is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't know. It just is. You know what I'm saying? It's where we're at, and so I kind of have to cope with it. I have to deal with it. Children are raised by the internet in so many ways. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they are being raised by the internet. Look, if I was a world czar, I would make it illegal for people to own cell phones until they were, I don't know, out of high school. It's just,
Yeah.
from my way of
Yeah.
thinking, it might sound old-fashioned. It's absolutely asinine that children
Mm,
have
yeah.
smartphones. And I've
Wow.
been in,
Wow.
teaching high school classes where they're constantly trying to sneak a peek at their phone,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
take a call and then say, like, "What are you doing?" "Well, my mom needs to talk to me right now." No, your mom does not need to talk to you
Oh my
right now.
God.
We lived on this
Wow.
planet for hundreds of thousands of years
Yes.
without
Yes.
our
Yes.
mommies calling us on a phone. She doesn't need to talk to you. You're
Yeah.
extremely rude, and your mother is extremely rude, and
Yes.
this is a problem. So
Yeah.
anyway, I would go off on a very ranting tangent if I were to
Yeah.
start talking about smartphones and
I
the
see. I
overuse
see.
of them.
All
And
right.
the other thing, I'll say one more thing. There's a lot of low effort or lazy parenting where they put
Uh-huh.
a screen in front of a little kid
Right.
as a
Right.
babysitting
Right.
device, which is one of the worst things that you
Right.
can do for a kid
Oh
because they
God.
grow up, they can't speak, they can't think, and like you
Hmm.
said, if you're trying to talk to them about something, they
Yeah.
want you to send a text to them
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
talking to them. And I think, like, what
Directly.
the hell is wrong with you that you can't
Oh,
even talk?
it's
That
terrifying.
you, it's just
It is.
it's
Yeah.
nuts.
As a parent, I mean that rips your guts out. I mean that's a horrible feeling. to see your child in that kind of light, and to know that, the world as we live in it, the postmodern world, has done that. Like, for example, I'll have relatives say like, "Oh, well, you shouldn't let your son play video games or something," and I'm like, "Well, that's what all of his friends are doing." Like, so cut him off from all of his friends. You see where I'm going with that? And like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't just play video games; they go on adventures, and they're not that screwed up or whatever. But anyway, yeah, it's a rough world out there. I feel like adults could use a hand in this department. So yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but anyway, back to I don't know, the themes: God, family, and nation. What? Let me first pass the mic over to Paul a little, or Patriot a little bit, and just kind of, see what are you trying to do with your work there. Maybe you could discuss your artwork a little bit.
Um, yeah, I mean, how do you show nation other than
Hmm.
nation? But it's just the orderly arrangement. I'm trying
Hmm.
to see sort of symbiotic relationship that's necessary.
Okay. Sort of,
Obviously,
well, sort of
God is.
man and community, kind of, or the family and the community. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the sun cross, however you want to see it
Hmm.
from my
Hmm.
perspective.
Hmm.
Top, the structure and that goes down.
Mm.
The other parts where you've got the family, and then in the background the
Okay.
village
Yeah. Nice.
environment, which represents the nation.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, being out here in Romania, actually, one of the greatest experiences of really
So,
seeing how the essence of community is.
uh,
A lot of
no,
people.
I think of places like Romania as being less overwhelmed with technology. Is that true, or am I in la la land?
Well, in it, I mean, there's people still have their manual jobs.
Okay.
Like we kind of befriended
Hmm.
and
Right.
they provided milk and honey and fresh
Right. Right.
meat with
Right. Right. Right.
from them
That's
every.
funny that plugs into something we were talking about before the show about cattle ranchers. Uh, Brant, you were saying you work in a kind of a small town area there, and I was saying, what we need to do is like make cattle ranching, revert America back to just cattle ranches or something, simplify life again. But of course, I'm being silly. But maybe if you become like the dictator, you could do that. Just cattle ranching and no cell phones. Yeah.
Or yeah, maybe everyone's cell phone works for a maximum of an hour a day, so you have to really
Oh,
pay attention to
wow,
when you're going to be on
wow,
it.
wow! That's kind of a cool concept. When I grew up, TV went off at a certain hour in the night. You'd be like, I don't know what it was, like 1 in the morning or something like that, and then they would put on, the national anthem, and you knew like, oh, TV's over, and then go to
Yeah.
bed. It's too late. That's kind of an interesting comment or concept, is to like, what if the internet, or yeah, now the cell phones, for example, maybe not the internet. That might be a little too big, but yeah, that it would certainly force people to focus, right? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah.
Such I should do.
So yeah, I'd love to hear some comments from people in the chat. We've got some very cool people here. My channel's here. Jay Raidu is here. Chief Moody, the mighty, the all-powerful Chief Moody is here. I had the pleasure of being on his show about a month or so ago. It was a wonderful chat that we had, and I'm going to be having Chief on my show at some point. I just getting out of Facebook jail, not Facebook, YouTube jail, and so I'm a little cautious, a little nervous about what I do on YouTube right now, trying to set up a Rumble, this and that. But we've got a rising star here, Chief Moody. He is involved in the patriotic alternative community. My Scottish brother, and I've Scottish heritage as well, so that's kind of for me a really fun thing to connect there. Um, we'll see. We'll see what we get into. We'll find out. We haven't figured out what we'll talk about quite yet. But I'm very much interested in introducing him to my community, and making connections. I think it's important that we do all that. We got a comment here from Jay Raidu. On the subject of the Frankfurt School, I'm currently working on a research project based on a hunch that I had that there was a connection between Sabbatean Frankism and the Frankfurt School. S- Help us out with it. This is a form of, to my knowledge, is that a form of fascism, Sabbatean Frankism? Maybe you could get because that's really a rabbit hole right there. If you could expand on that, I'd like to hear. And I'm finding there absolutely is having to read lots of obscure Jewish books and scholarly articles. Again, I'm very cautious to talk about the small hats with YouTube hanging over me like a huge knife, and so I don't know how far I can go down that rabbit hole. I'm very knowledgeable about it myself personally, but I'm also excited to hear other people's thoughts on that stuff. So let's see what else is going on. Jay continues. The ideologies are obviously connected, but I mean names, dates, places, the entire 4 centuries. Pretty wild. And that goes right back to our discussion, Brent, about, like, in a sense, how brilliant this infiltration was. That this is not just decades long, but actually centuries long. Um, how would you teach something like that, though? You know what I mean?
You mean how would I teach about what they did, or how we should
What?
go about it?
Well, I guess what they did for starters. Because I think it's important to know what they did. It's an important history.
Well, that would just be in some history lesson if I get to that, or someone gets to that at some point.
Hmm.
Uh, and like with anyone who's writing historical text, you have to
Hmm.
decide how much detail are you going to put in it. How much detail is
Hmm.
necessary so that
Hmm.
the reader understands, like, a time, a place, they have a mental image of it, how many people are involved, perhaps
Hmm.
what context or what contacts did they have in one of
Hmm.
our governments that empowered them either
Yeah.
through media or some
Yeah.
other type of leverage that was granted them by a king or someone like that, and
Right.
then
Right. Right.
move forward a certain amount of time. Okay, now they're in a different country, or now that's morphed into something else. Talk about that.
Mm.
I
Mm.
guess just like, what are the key stages of this
Yeah.
evolution? For the
Yeah.
historical text, you got to figure out how far back do we go. We're going to start. Do I start 100 years, 200 years, whatever,
Mm.
and
Mm.
then just go through
Mm.
the key stages up into now, and
Mm.
make sure that between each stage you explain how it evolved into the next stage, what they did, then
Mm.
how that evolved into
Mm.
the next stage. Because I
Mm.
think with a historical text, it can never be 100% perfect. It can never be 100% accurate. You can provide as much detail as you think is necessary, and then it is incumbent upon the reader, if they want to know more, then they have to start doing some of their own research if they think that they're very interested in it and that's insufficient. But
Mm.
for schooling for kids, I think the basics are sufficient.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this stuff is fairly complicated, so you really obviously have to cater it to the age group, I suppose. Um, but to me, it seems like I feel that understanding, how do I put it? Maybe Zionist infiltration throughout Western history is something that has to be one of the central educational platforms. That if you don't, because to me, if you don't understand Zionism, what it's about, all of the kind of the machinations of infiltration, the financial system, cultural Marxism, blah blah blah, all on and on, then you're not actually seeing a meta-political view of Western history, Western civilization. I really genuinely feel that. Because anytime I try to have any kind of conversation with normies about what's going on, I have to preface the whole thing with a big discussion on like, Zionist infiltration.
Mhm.
And you kind of, I mean, you sort of kind of get a like a huh, like what? Like that's just not. They don't know anything about it, and I'm like, this is the one thing you need to know the most about, you know. And
Right.
like, it's. I think everybody in the movement has had some kind of experience with trying to talk to normies about this type of material. And then there's that topic. One thing that I like to say to people a lot is um, the most what's the word? The most censored information is the information that's most likely to be the truth. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just how it works, you know. Another person I was talking to, I was saying like, you know, and like, oh wow, holy cow! Instead of like, Joe Bag of Donuts, who is scrolling Facebook and sees a couple like, oh, Trump, the assassination, something, blah blah blah, and then just grabbing the opinions of all their friends, and not actually understanding how things really work in the world. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it
So,
may be daunting though. I don't know.
well, see, what you're describing right there, Donald, is something that I've given a lot of thought to
Mm,
because I'm trying to figure out how to correct that. So we have a
mm,
population that is heavily entertained, heavily
yeah,
distracted, and not
yeah,
truly educated in
yeah,
history,
yeah.
or the history that we have been taught is meant to mislead us.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's like our civilization is just racing forward at 200 miles an hour, and like
Yeah,
here's a distraction, here's a distraction, here's a distraction. Okay, make sure that you're on your cell phone constantly. Make
yeah.
sure that you know you say all the cool words that the other could say, and you don't need to learn about history because you're an individual, you're a consumer, you're important, you're so special. You probably need to get a tattoo that looks like this and says
Yes.
something about your personality,
You're
and
a
you need to,
victim.
yeah, you're a
Yeah.
victim, you're also a victim unless you're a white man, then you're a racist piece of shit, but that's another
Yes.
story. you know
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's no point along that chain where someone is encouraged to stop and actually think about what's going on, and to learn about
Mhm.
their history and learn about how all
Mm,
of these different pressures have come um,
mm,
onto our civilization to make our civilization what it is right now. So
mm,
the way that I look at it is the best way to get around that, and there's no shortcut, is you start
mhm.
with the truth and you provide that at a foundational level, such as
Mm,
homeschooling or
yeah.
alternate information websites, etc. And then it's
Mm,
incumbent upon the parents who actually give a shit to
yeah.
make sure that their children understand that. And then you can have a
Mm,
generation of children growing up with the truth, and they're going to
yeah.
be a completely different type of animal than the kids that are running around today with very short attention spans. And
Yeah.
there's no short way, there's no easy way to turn this around. It's just
Right,
going to
right,
take
right.
generations.
Literally. I mean, it took generations for them to get where they are now. So
Yeah.
it's going to take generations for us to undo it. So this is the thing that, there's a kind of a saying about like everything we do, we're not going to actually see the results of in our
Right.
lifetime. Yeah, you know what I mean. We're not going to
Yep.
meet the people that benefit from the work that we do. And because like I have like family members and people that are like, why do you keep doing this? What is wrong with you? You're so obsessed with this. Like, I'm worried about you. And I'm like, you're worried about me, I'm worried about you. I'm
Yeah.
trying to help. And this idea, like, imagine, you know, meeting someone who knows that you're born in a prison, but he has to convince you first that you were born in a prison. and he's trying to find a way out, or he found the way out. But he
Yeah.
can't take you there because he has got to first convince you that you're born in a prison.
Oh,
You know,
okay. Yeah. So, okay. So I want to say something about that. So this is personally what I've discovered over time and through
yeah,
trial and error and being very frustrated. And I may have said this
yeah,
before, is
mhm,
that most people, they actually do not want the truth. They
yeah,
don't want to know what's happening. What they
no,
want, whether they express it or not, is to believe in a reality in which they are comfortable with, in which they are a
mm,
good guy, they are
yeah,
moral, and they don't have to
yeah.
do anything. So if you come along
Oh
and you
my
start
God.
poking, their bubble of delusion
Yes,
with your little
yes.
pinpricks of fact, they get
Oh
very
yeah.
upset about it. They get
Oh yeah.
defensive. They want to
Oh yeah.
attack you. What's wrong with you? You're a racist piece of shit. You're crazy, etc. Because it
Yeah.
starts to imbalance them psychologically because
Mhm.
they know like, oh shit, something's up here, and then they
Yeah.
want to run away from that and go back to their little fantasy
Yeah.
world. So the
You're
way that
so
I
right.
deal with that, yeah, the way that I feel with that is, or I deal with it is that I can't affect those people. I can't directly influence those people. So I'm
Mm.
going to focus everything I can on people who do care, on people who do want to know the truth,
Ah, ah,
people who do want white well-being. These other
wow.
people, I don't give a shit because they're not worth talking to, and I don't need to influence all of them. I just need
Yeah.
to I just need to help the good people. So
Wow.
that's
Wow.
what I do.
I think also the focus on children is huge. Um, this is a thing that I've noticed, and I think people in the chat could maybe it would help to get your perspective on it. It's the kind of thing that you need a broader uh, poll to get a sense of it. Anyway, that you know the younger generations more and more and more are less bought into the World War II narrative. I mean, on the one
Mhm.
hand, a lot of people just don't even know history at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And but then there's just been so much of that kind of alt-right culture, if you want to call it that, the kind of shitlord culture that has exposed all kinds of information about World War II and how people have the system, if you will, has lied. The infiltrated system. The infiltrators have been teaching us that we are somebody that we're not, or that the good guys are actually the bad guys, and everything is upside down. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, you hear me. So, like, I mean, that's pretty much how this. How do I say? Like, it's just a big part of this movement. So, you figure, just look at the Groypers, for example. Them alone, they're like 20 something guys. It's a type of a youth culture, and they have that kind of like, oh, I don't know what it is. It's like how people fight on the internet. Like they're very cruel, they're very honest. I'm not saying that I'm a groiper or that they're good in every way or anything like that, but it is a type of a culture. It's a sort of a no bullshit culture that I
Mhm.
think was born out of message boards and access to information, 4chan, poll. You know what I'm trying to say. So I feel like there's hope in that regard. It's already the seeds are planted. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, I think they are comfortable with confrontation,
Yeah,
and that's important if you're going to take on the anti-white oligarchs,
big
because you're
time.
not supposed to confront what their narrative is. And so,
Yeah.
for better or worse, we do need people like that. And if they have to
Mhm,
get raised on message boards on the internet, then so be it.
mhm.
If that's how it
Right,
formed.
right, right, right.
So, with the gropers and the other different community,
Groypers, not gropers, but that was a funny mistake.
whatever.
I
They,
don't know that they're groping anybody.
I've
Go
heard it.
on.
I've heard it both ways. So anyway,
Okay.
with
All
the
right. All right.
gropers, with
Okay.
and the other sub communities, uh, I think that generally we're all allies, and there doesn't
Mhm,
need to be
mhm.
infighting,
I agree.
insulting one camp, insulting the other camp, etc.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
people are going to have different approaches towards trying to get to the same long term goal. The only
Yeah.
thing that I see that bothers me is a lack
Mhm.
of humility from
Ooh,
people in the different camps because they
wow.
have these big fragile egos. So
Yes.
it stops them from learning from other people. And it stops them
Wow.
from saying, you know what, you guys over there, you did a good job. You're making progress and I
Yeah.
can appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Like I'm a huge Candace Owens appreciator. I'm like, wow, like she got fired from Daily Wire. She's asking the wrong questions, which are the right questions.
Mhm.
And like, I'm not going to kind of go down the rabbit hole too much on that, but anybody who's helping us, I'm okay with, to some extent. So it's important. Now, there's two people, huge influencers in the far right, dissident right, white identity movement. That's Stu Peters and Adam Green. And both
Mhm.
of these guys, we all know Adam Green, No More News. I strongly recommend people go check him out. You can draw your own conclusions, but very hardcore researcher on exactly what we're talking about. Like he would be probably one of the best resources for lesson planning on how did the small hats infiltrate Western civilization. There's some argument about this and that and the other thing. I won't go down and get into the weeds, but okay, and then you have Stu Peters, who was just kind of your normal pro-Trump MAGA content developer guy that was just kind of a popular grifter, if you will. But
Mhm.
somehow he took the J pill and boom, he exploded big time, big time. He's like he does a lot of, I won't say Fed posting, but like very angry JQ type content. And are you
I
familiar with
was
Stu Peters? Oh, go ahead.
going to say the problem I have with Adam Green is,
He's anti-Christian.
well, he's very anti-Christian, and
Yeah,
he,
yeah.
in a roundabout way, and I know he doesn't intend. He is his work is actually divisive in my
Okay, this is a good topic. Yeah, I hear you.
opinion, because ultimately it pits pagan against Christian.
Exactly.
That's the end result of work. Although he mentions are pure, um, and the narrative that he takes is he takes the same doctrine model and uses that as a premise against Christianity. And he's viewing it and judging it through a lens of enemy,
Mm, hmm hmm
whole model against the enemy, model that they've given him. So, I don't
You
know,
know,
it's
I
very destructive and dangerous.
I feel like someone who's really, really knowledgeable about the Aryan Israelite concept, they should, do some kind of a debate with Adam Green, because that would really, I mean, that throws his whole theories on Christianity out the window. You know what I'm saying? And it would be really, really interesting to. I mean, Adam Green is Adam Green. Like he's very headstrong, blah 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 blah. And I'm personally not trying to get into the weeds of that. And I definitely strongly agree with you on the topic about being divisive, pitting what do you say, like pagans versus Christians. We obviously we really need to work together, and the more division we have, yeah, it helps our enemies when we're divided. You know what I'm saying? So we have to find some way around that. But that again, that's another can of worms, though. You know. But where was I going with all this? So, oh, okay. So all I wanted to bring up really was how they're infighting now, Stu Peters and Adam Green. And I look at that and I'm like, guys, come on, man. Like it's just there's something wrong with our movement that we're constantly, punching right, if you will, and like, kind of punching at each other and bickering and fighting over these things. Part of it is an ego. Um, I don't know. I figure like, in the grand scheme of things, in the marketplace of ideas, that let the audience decide, let people come to their own conclusions. You can make your case and stuff, but like turning it into like, okay, my people can't talk to your people kind of thing is a little.
Mhm.
It's just like immature, frankly. I don't fly with that. But I don't know. It's interesting. So yeah, and all I was trying to do really was to just to talk about infighting a bit, and even that could be a topic to get into. Training people how to not do that. That would be a pretty tough one. That's a tough call right there.
Mainly focusing on the common grounds, perhaps
It, I think
common
it's just yeah.
common.
I think common interests. Yeah. I think it's how do I say, like, I think it boils down to maturity. Like if you really it's the younger people that like to fight and that like to kind of get into these tiffs, these. And then it's just I feel like if outsiders were watching, they would be like, "Oh wow, this dissident right stuff is terrible." These guys are, they don't know how to, like, they're not on message together. They're not working together. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. But anyway, there it is. So let's see. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. I'm kind of liking how this is coming together. It's very. It's always like a, a work, like sculpture, like a piece of clay, or where like you like gradually pull it out. You know what I'm saying? So like
Mhm.
defining it a little more and a little more. Bringing it together. So what are some of your upcoming projects then? Maybe we can get back into that a little bit.
You talking to me?
Yes, I'm sorry. You talking to me, eh?
You talking to me?
Hey,
Talking
you
to me?
talking? Yeah. We're gonna do some infighting on this show for you
Oh,
folks. Ready? Go. No.
yeah. I don't like the way you draw. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I mentioned it already or before the show or not.
Mm,
I thought I did.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm going to repeat myself. So sorry,
Okay.
everyone. So
That's all right.
anyway, Nick's up on the website. White Wellbeing Lessons. This is information that I taught
Yeah.
to people, families online the last couple of years. I'm taking that information that
Mm,
I did in little private lessons and putting it on the
mm,
website in
mm,
lessons in the Elite Teen Series, because this is
mm,
information that's more geared towards teens and then adults. It's
mm.
beyond the scope of youth for the most part. And then also, I'm putting together a series of activity books
Okay.
for youth. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, on Western
I think
civilization.
yeah,
Yeah.
we talked a little before the show, I think, about that. Maybe you could get into some detail on that.
Okay, so the activity books are going to have a lot of the typical activities that you would have in an elementary class: word search, word
Mhm.
scramble,
Yeah.
mazes, coloring pages, those
Nice.
sorts of things, and they're going to be along a theme. So each book is themed to a different aspect of Western civilization. Like the one that I'm just finishing now is on
Mm.
castles. So
Wow.
I've got about 5 pages of some informational text with some drawings about
Mhm.
castles. Here's the
Cool.
different parts of a castle. Here's what they do.
Yeah.
And then I go into the mazes, the coloring books, etc. And in the coloring pages, and in those first few pages of informational text, I have
Mhm.
some words bolded. So those are the vocabulary words that the kids will learn as they work in these activity books. And
Mm.
then they take the
Got it.
word and they match it up with the corresponding picture. And then there's
Okay.
other pages where they practice their printing, so they print out these words right here. And then I give them
Mhm.
some writing prompts where here's some different types of photos, or so, not photos,
Mm.
but little drawings having to do with a
Okay.
castle, or here's some people in a castle. Now write your own
Mhm.
story about this. So it's
Nice.
just different ways of introducing topics that give our kids a sense of identity, who
Nice.
they are, and it
Mhm.
does it in a fun way. So it's reinforcing identity and culture, which is what our people need.
Mm.
And and
Magnificent.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, getting this out to the youth, getting it to the kids as young as possible, I think is the most intelligent way to do it. And I've had lots of emails over the past 3 years from parents asking for some literature or some worksheets or something along those lines, and I said, sorry, I just don't have it yet.
Yeah.
But now there's a
I see.
technology
Okay.
available to do that, and so that's what I'm
Yes.
working on.
I was going to say, how
Very
do you plan
sweet.
to
This,
deliver it to people?
Sorry, what was that?
How do you plan on delivering it to people? Is it stuff they can print out themselves, or is it all
Oh,
going to be?
no. Oh, no, these will be books that you can buy on Amazon. And
okay.
and I will have links. When I get 5 or 6 books made, I'll put a new section on the website for books. People can look at it, sample pages. Here's a description. Here's the cost. Here's a link to buy it off of Amazon. There you go. And then maybe I'll add the commerce stuff to my website as well, so they can buy it directly off the website, or something like that.
Nice. That's the thing about it is, like, how do I say it? In school you do schoolwork, and I think every kid really wants something that is engaging and meaningful to them, and that they learn better when they care about what they're learning about. You know what I'm saying? And when they're learning about who they are, their own history, their own identity, I should feel, that seems to be a really, really strong motivator. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it starts to make, how do I say, it's a school culture, I guess, or an educational culture that you're building with this type of content. And it's just, I think, brilliant. It's really marvelous. I mean, we over here, we're culture content developers with the arts, but the arts and education absolutely have to be married. It's extremely important that there's that kind of relationship.
Yeah, I think it's a holistic approach. The arts, the culture, the
Yeah.
music, the history, the language, the words that we use, it's
Yeah.
all tied into a people.
Perfectly said.
And we should consciously control all of those aspects, because
Yeah.
all of those belong to us.
Beautifully said, my man. That's I couldn't agree more. And that's essentially what we're really trying to do here, is to take back our entire culture. And it's there's so few of us out here doing it. Um, it's crazy, because as an artist and educator, I'm so familiar with the fact that when I work with other educators and our artists, that the institution of art and the institution of education already has been set up by leftists, and that all of the assumptions about what art is and what education is within their dialectical framework. And so it's horrible. It's like really, really a bad thing, and you have to kind of unlearn all that crap in order to just start knowing who you are. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yep.
like, this is, I mean, and how many of us are out here doing this? You could count on one hand. It's insane. So once again, if there's any millionaires out there listening, like, get behind this. This is about saving our people, and we're fighting against, my God, on unimaginable odds. But it's the only fight there is. You know what I'm saying? This is the era that we live in, and this is so, like, I look back at, say, like, the 1960s, 70s. Everything was about protesting Vietnam. War protests, and the whole music industry had this kind of, that whole thing. We just, then later the films, and we look back at that time as, like, the Vietnam era. You know what I mean? And it was kind of a something of, like, an enlightenment or a renaissance in some way, culturally, artistically, spiritually, in terms of, like, people saying, hey, we're against war. Whereas their parents' generation was in World War II, and it was a totally different culture at the time. So today I say, the war we're fighting is for the existence of white people, and that white genocide is the number one issue in the world, or our world. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
There's other people that, that they celebrate it. But yeah, if we could just get that message across to people, like, that would hopefully help a lot more.
Well,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll say one thing about that. I think that what we'll do will pick up steam. It's just like trying to move a really heavy object, even if it's on wheels. There's a lot of
Mm,
inertia there that you have to
uh,
overcome. So the hardest part to get a really heavy thing going is
just
from
to get it
zero.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
zero up to speed.
yeah.
Once it gets up to speed, then
Okay.
all these other people will then give themselves permission to
Yeah,
join, because
yeah,
most people are kind of intellectually lazy, to be
yeah,
honest, and
yeah,
they just
yeah,
kind of follow along like herd animals. So
yeah.
those of us that are out there in front, once we just keep
Hmm.
the pressure on, it'll finally start going.
Hmm.
We'll win and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff. It's just going to be a
Yeah,
pain in the ass, and until it
yeah.
works.
Yeah. I it is what it is. I mean, I don't know if like, people like Friedrich Nietzsche thought like, "Oh, no one's gonna read my books. I might as well just not write them." Like, where would we be today? I figured that's just the reality of this movement is simply, it has a kind of a hidden future to us, but it's something that we've figured out. We're smart enough, and we're courageous enough, resourceful enough to get involved in this, and we're just going to keep going. Get, like you say, going to get some momentum.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're up on the hour here. So I think, Paul, is there any closing comments you'd like to make for the show?
Um, no, I'd just like to thank Brent for his good work that he's doing to community and playing his role, and
Mhm.
hope that you get the support you need, whether it's funding or time,
Mhm.
people to chip in and help.
Right,
Thank you, Paul.
right.
It's very kind of you to say, and I
Cool,
hope it
No,
cool.
works out.
I mean, there's a small handful of people that are doing that. I know there's a few, okay, but people really. So, I wish you all the best with it. If there's any way, then
Well, very good. I think what we'll do is we will probably, maybe we'll do a follow-up on this show at some point or something, because I think it's interesting to carry on with the ideas, and see where we can take these ideas, see what the impact is. Especially, I'm interested to see how your work with White Student Tea comes together. I don't know, how long do you think it'll be before your project comes together with him?
Oh, till we got something on the website.
Yeah.
I would realistically say 3 months, because I don't know how much time. Because I'll do a little something, he'll do a little something.
Hmm.
Then we'll have a stream together. We'll meet when we have time, and
Hmm.
we just kicked it off. So realistically, I would say 3 months.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Well, let me thank everyone in the audience as well. Jay, my channel, Chief Moody, great having you guys on the show. Everybody who watches the show, please share with your networks, and stay tuned for more. So, God bless you all, and we will stay strong, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
All right.